Hi everyone, Blake Oliver here, and I am really excited to be talking today with Seth David of Nerd Enterprises. Nerd Enterprises is a company that provides consulting and training services in accounting and software. The consulting services range from basic bookkeeping to CFO services such as financial modeling. And I was really excited to hear that Seth is going to be speaking at the Accounting and Finance Show, Los Angeles, because I'm also going to be there. And I thought it would be great to get a little preview of what he's talking about. But first, I thought, Seth, first, thank you for joining me. And I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about how did you get into the world of small business accounting technology? Because that seems to be you're just an expert in that. And I'm curious what inspired you to learn all of these apps.
So it really, I think, was kind of a natural and very organic process. From the beginning, when I started Nerd Enterprises, first of all, I called it Nerd Enterprises because I didn't want it to just be an accounting firm. I thought about, like Seth's accounting service or something like that. And I was like, first of all, no, that's too boring. And second of all, I didn't want to sort of lock myself into just do accounting because I knew there'd be other nerdy stuff that I could do for people. And in fact, when we started, we didn't even do bookkeeping. We started out literally building sort of applications in Excel for companies. And that's what it was. Our whole service initially, our offering was based on people who needed spreadsheets to do things, and they didn't know how to get spreadsheets to do what they needed them to do. And really, so it started with the financial modeling, and we had some really interesting projects in the beginning. So it was all very nerdy stuff. And then eventually I said, well, it makes sense. I should just offer bookkeeping services. So I did. And then it was just really about me constantly looking for better ways to do things, constantly asking myself, how do I get this done faster, more efficiently? And the funny thing is, back in those days, and it never occurred to me until many years later when we all started talking about value pricing, it never occurred to me that I was sort of shooting myself in the foot because I would bill by the hour, and I was always looking for ways to get things done more efficiently, which of course was causing me to lower my bill. But in my mind, it freed up time to take on more clients. So that's how I was thinking it was helping me to make more money by doing things more efficiently. So anyway.
Got it. So now you offer a combination of training and consulting and ongoing management of financials, I'm assuming, for your customers or clients?
Yeah. So, for a while I'd gotten away from the consulting and heavily into the training. And a couple of years ago, around 2 years ago, I think just about exactly, I said, I'm crazy not to offer the consulting services because I'm teaching other accountants and bookkeepers how to do it. So why not do it myself? And in fact, it's funny, right at the beginning of that process, I remember is how you and I met over transitioning one of those clients. He was like one of the first clients I got when I started to decide to go back into the consulting world, a little more aggressively. I'd always have clients on the side here and there, but so I said, why not make money doing what I'm teaching others how to do? And I could still teach others how to do it and make money that way too. It just made sense.
Awesome. So I was hoping you could give us a little preview of what you're going to be talking about at the Accounting and Finance Show.
So the sort of core title of it is going to be Creating Your Future. There's going to be some kind of an appendix on that title, but essentially it's about creating your future. And what motivated me to think about that title was, I think it's a famous Abraham Lincoln quote that says, if the best way to predict your future is to create it. And I look at the world we live in today and all of these apps that we can get our hands on. And I look at, and I almost see our world of accountants and bookkeepers as, at least in this one respect, as a divided world. You have people like me who embrace and love and can't get enough of these apps. And then you have the people who say, it's too much, I can't deal with it. I don't know which app to use. There's too many apps. I don't want to use apps. I just want to do bookkeeping, right? And so I'm trying to sort of bridge the gap, I think, between those two worlds. And so creating your future is really about using what's available to us, right? I recently put a video out talking about how we shouldn't be afraid of AI, artificial intelligence. We should embrace it because we can use it to our own advantage rather than be afraid of it and be afraid that it's going to cut us out of a job. Instead, my way of thinking is, how can I use this to run my stuff more efficiently? And ultimately, it's going to be about how to build your ecosystem so that I'll give you a perfect example of something I created just today, literally as of the day we're talking. I got obsessed with a new app. That's nothing surprising. It's called Airtable, right? It's kind of a cloud-based database. Yeah, I love Airtable. And it's funny. I looked at it a long time ago And I said, I can't look at this now because I know myself. I'll get obsessed with it, and I don't have the bandwidth to do this right now. Because I'm the kind of guy, especially with an app like that, not with all apps, but something like this that's just really cool and really powerful. Once I get my hands on it, I'll stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning playing with it and trying to figure out everything I can do with it. And then, of course, the ideas come flooding in. So over this past week, I started getting into it. And today, a few hours ago, I used Airtable with Zapier and my QuickBooks Online company, which is where I keep my own company's accounting, to set up a system where, because I'm onboarding 2 new clients right now, and it's something I've been meaning to do. So I created a system in Airtable to track clients and rates, and then I said, let me build the prospects table into this and so on. So I built a web form to replace the old way I was doing it, to capture their information. So when the client says, hey, let's pull the trigger, let's get started, what happens now, thanks to Zapier, is as soon as the record gets created in Airtable based on the form they've submitted, it automatically sets up the new client in QuickBooks Online for me, populates all the information in there. It creates a task in my project management application, which I use, is called Active Collab, and it creates a task reminding me to set up the project. And there's a reason why it doesn't actually set up the project, which I'll explain in a second. And then it also adds them as a contact in my CRM, which is Nimble, all cloud-based applications. And the reason it doesn't...
Sorry,
okay.
let me stop you there, because that's quite a lot.
Of course.
So I want to make sure I'm following. So you're using Airtable is where you're entering the data first. Is that right? Or is that...
I used Airtable to build a database application where then I create a form that the client fills out.
Got it. Okay. So for those who aren't familiar with Airtable, it's like, how would you describe it? It's like Excel on steroids in the cloud.
It's Excel meets Microsoft Access or File Manager if you're an Apple guy. It's Excel meets Microsoft Access on steroids. Yeah, you can create relational data tables and link things together in ways that you could never do with just a spreadsheet. It's just awesome. I'll have to do some videos on it now that I'm getting into it.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. And well, I'm sure you'll be featuring it probably as part of your presentation, I imagine. So let me just continue and make sure I got this straight. So you've got Airtable set up as your primary database, and then how are you triggering these different apps? You said you're using Zapier?
Yeah. So the initial trigger in the Zap that I created, which is with Zapier, by the way, people say, I don't know if they should call it Zapier or Zapier, but I think
it's Zapier. It
is Zapier because you create a Zap, you don't create a Zape, right? That's my logic.
Zapier makes you happier.
So the initial trigger is a new record gets created in Airtable, which happens when a client fills out the form, right? So a client fills out the form, creates a new record in Airtable. That triggers Zapier to say, oh, I've got a new record in Airtable. Boom, go create the customer in QuickBooks Online. Boom, go add the task in Active Collab. Boom, go create the new contact in the CRM, right? So all automatically. And of course, I get an email notification letting me know that this is all happening.
Got it. So, well, that's really cool. So what would, that it sounds really cool. It sounds difficult to set up. I'm sure you'll make it a lot, you'll explain it and it'll be a lot easier with images. But how would you quantify the time savings?
It's hard to, because I'll give you an example. First of all, the obvious initially is I would otherwise be taking the same information and populating it in 3 different places, right? So it saves me that trouble. It also saves me the time that would go along with the very high likelihood that I make a typo somewhere and that I later, now some people might say, I don't care about that. I'm OCD. Like I hate typos. It has to be perfect, or like if I accidentally held down the shift key too long, so now the first 2 letters of their last name is capitalized, that kind of thing drives me nuts. It makes me, it makes me crazy. So it's that kind of time savings, I think, overall. And it also cuts down on stress. And I'll explain why. Because I don't have to worry anymore about what I may have forgotten to do as part, and the onboarding process with a new client is so critical. So, and the reason that goes to the reason why I don't have Zapier create the actual project in Active Collab, because you could say, go create a new project and take this information from what the client filled out and put it wherever. It's because I use a template in Active Collab for new business management client projects, and Zapier doesn't allow you to create the new project with a certain template specified. So So instead, I just create a task in my main project where I manage everything at a high level. And that task basically says, go create the project and use the template. So I put the little sort of trail of breadcrumbs out there in the digital world. So I know I'm not going to forget a single thing, and that's the key to it.
Yeah, I think that, just based on my recollection of my days in accounting, having my own firm, that was the biggest stressor, was thinking something's going to fall through the cracks, especially onboarding a new client. The worst thing, of course, was when I'd do everything correctly on their end and they'd be happy. And then I'd remember a month later, I'd forgotten to bill them. Right.
Right.
That was never a fun conversation to have.
Right. Which, by the way, is another process I've automated, because all of my clients are on flat monthly fees. So they're just at a certain point in the onboarding process, which is one of the steps in my template that I create in Active Collab. They're going to get set up with a subscription. So their card's going to get charged monthly. I don't send invoices out anymore. Haven't in a couple of years.
Well, that's so awesome, Seth. Thanks so much for talking to me and giving us that preview of your session. For those of you who are thinking about going to the Accounting and Finance Show Los Angeles, I highly recommend you attend, if only to see Seth, the master of apps, show you just how it's done and how you can automate virtually everything in your accounting practice or business with off-the-shelf apps, no programming required. It's a crazy new world of cloud accounting that we're in. So be sure to join. The Accounting and Finance Show is July 25th through 26th at the LA Convention Center, and we hope to see you there. Seth, thanks for being with me.
Thanks for having me, Blake.